And we are live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Thank you guys for joining us, everybody. I'm Nick Valencia, an independent journalist based here in Atlanta, coming to you live from my home, where it's been a fun and interesting day. Another great start to the week here. We have some new reporting out. Our latest video from our reports across America. We've spent a lot of time in California over the course of last, couple of weeks, the last couple of months. And during that time, we spent some time in the Central Valley. We brought to you our first report last week of our time spent with migrant farmers. Those grape pickers, the grapes that you see on your table likely came from Delano, right? So we brought to you that story. A lot of you guys really enjoyed that, really found it super interesting. So visually arresting, the visuals there from just spending time with those grape pickers. This week, today, on Monday, we released the latest report that we have. The Tale of Two Fields. That's what our executive producer titled it. And it's a story about those student athletes that go from the grape fields, from picking in the vineyards to the gridiron. We profiled the story of a 17-year-old, young Luis Diaz. Good to see you guys too, Diane. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. We profiled the story of a young 17-year-old named Luis Diaz. He is a student athlete, a varsity football player. He plays on the offensive and defensive line at Robert F. Kennedy High School in Delano, one of three high schools there, really care about education. And he starts his day every morning at 5 in the morning with a scalding hot cup of coffee because by 6 in the morning, he's out there in the grape vineyards with the undocumented laborers, shoulder to shoulder, picking grapes. And, those grapes end up on your table. They end up in your kids' lunches. They end up at your pool parties. We've talked all about that. And he thinks this is normal. This is normal life for kids in Delano. Normal is different though in Delano. After Luis is done with his 8-9 hour shift, he then goes to varsity football practice, and he does all of this in triple digit temperatures. Things, are not cool there. There's no cool breeze that runs through Delano. These are like 100-degree practices. Sometimes they're practicing on average 97, 98 degrees out there in the summer months. And they're doing this 5 days a week. Some kids might have summer jobs, sweeping hair in a barber shop, working at a sandwich shop. This is normal everyday life for Luis Diaz. Good to see you on here, Graham. Thankful for you joining here and you jumping on in. And we'll wait for more and more people to jump in because we have a special guest today. Today we're going to be talking to Sharon Abaud. Sharon Abaud is a local immigration attorney based in Los Angeles, California, and that, as you guys know, has been the epicenter for the authoritative wing of the Trump administration, the ICE enforcement. We've seen federal agents, militarized police forces flood the streets of Los Angeles, especially those neighborhoods that predominantly brown, black neighborhoods, and we've seen them target specifically the Latino community. Sources that we spoke to that are in these detention centers say the majority of those faces that they see are brown faces that look just like me, just like my friends, just like my family members. And if it was truly in good faith, if this really was merit-based law enforcement or immigration enforcement, we would see that those diverse detainees and sort of, the faces of those that are detained. The fact of the matter is, it are just people, mostly from the Latino community. We talked a lot about these issues with those student athletes that I spoke to in Delano. And, what's really interesting is they spoke about the president like he was some sort of famous comedian. They talked about him as if, I remember asking Luis Diaz and his friend Samuel Ortega what they thought about President Trump. And they said, we think he's funny, but sometimes he goes too far. And they have this, sort of ironic support for a man who has threatened families that look just like them. Samuel Ortega, for instance, he's the best friend of Luis Diaz. He's on this football team, on Robert F. Kennedy High School varsity football team. And he told me that his father came here as an undocumented immigrant to give him a better life, to give him the life that he currently has. And he says it's really scary when he hears the president talk about ending birthright citizenship. Is that something that's serious? Is that something that President Trump really is considering? Or is this just more sort of bluster and more talk that we're hearing from President Trump? These are one of the questions that we have from our immigration attorney, Sharon Abaud, and hopefully we could have her join here. But before we do, let's tease a little bit. Last time we were on here, we really appreciate everyone that stuck through us with our technical problems. It's so cute. We had some people that reminded me today and texted me today. Make sure that I had my phone charged. So that's all taken care of. But while you guys are on here, Mama, you just joined. This is awesome. Eliana is in the building. we want to tell you about where we're going to be later this week. And later this week, we are headed to Utah. Team Nick Valencia is on the road, and we're going to be telling stories, immigration stories that impact you. In our research, in talking to our sources and contacts throughout the country, we came across a story that was just heartbreaking and fascinating, and all for all the wrong reasons. A family in Utah is being hunted by the cartels in Mexico. They fled. They're now in this country. The son has an asylum claim. He was stabbed by a cartel member, a suspected cartel member in Mexico. The family came here. This young man, he's in his 20s. He had a DUI. And he did have status, but because of that DUI, it made it difficult for him to renew his status. It made him susceptible to detention. And that's exactly what happened just a couple months ago. On his way to work at about 7:45, he was pulled over by federal agents, a husband and wife ICE agent team, as he describes, and they took him into custody. As they were driving him to the detention center, that wife, that was one of the ICE agents, spoke to him and said, you're one of the nicest captures, in her words, that I've had. That really stood out to him. And then 2 weeks later, what she did next was really sort of the nail in the coffin as to why they feel they're being targeted by this husband and wife ICE agent team. 2 weeks after the son is taken into custody, the father is then taken into custody. And while he is being detained by this husband and wife ICE agent team, they tell the father that if your wife doesn't deport, her status is coming up in the next 3 months. And if she doesn't self deport in the next 3 months, she's next. We're coming for her next. The wife is now in hiding. We're going to go talk to the family who does have status. Some of these kids were born in the United States. We're talking to some of those family members and talking to a family about what they feel. A family that's being targeted in Mexico by the cartels, and now they feel like they're hunted by the same husband and wife ICE agent team in Utah. And more interesting stuff that's happening in Utah. The Brown Berets exist out there. You guys may be familiar with the Brown Berets. Back in the 60s, they were a big movement like the Black Panthers, but for Latinidad, for Chicanismo. They were very active on the social scene during those anti-Vietnam War protests and just, social justice movements throughout Los Angeles. There's a Brown Beret chapter in the West Valley in Utah. We've tried to reach out to them. We're hoping to connect with them, to spend a day and see their work, how they're trying to stand up for the community. And also, lastly, the school system. They're about to go back to school. Not everyone has a crazy schedule and is already back into school like our kids are here in Atlanta. But these kids, they're scared about going back into the school district because of the current political climate, the ICE raids that are happening in California and really all across the country. We've seen them from California to Connecticut and everywhere in between. What's going to happen when they go back to school? We are going to talk to a family who is in the shadows and is sending their kids back to school despite their fear that may expose them and make them vulnerable and susceptible to being targeted for detention themselves. So that's what we're working on. Thanks, everybody. Get in the chat here. We've got Natalie Hernandez, who is helping out, making sure monitoring everything. It's so fun to have you guys and some familiar names in the chat. So let's invite our guest here, who we have, Sharon Abaud. I hope I'm saying that name right and I'm not butchering the name, Sharon. Aud. Okay. We'll invite you in as a co-host and wait for Sharon. All right. What a Monday here. While we wait for Sharon to join, I want to brag on my wife a little bit. While I was outside prepping for the show, this is like the craziest story. We have this canopy of oak trees in our backyard. And I hear this noise and I look outside of my shed and there are these baby squirrels that have dropped from probably 30 feet in the air and have fallen on the ground. Hey, there's Sharon. Hey, how are you? I'm telling this
Hi,
crazy
Nick.
story while we were waiting for you to join. I had this canopy of trees in my backyard, and these baby squirrels fell out of the trees and like onto the grass in my backyard. And my wife, God bless her, I was bragging on my wife here, killing time basically. My wife like drove an hour to Cumming, Georgia, to go deliver this baby squirrel to try to like make sure it made it to like this doctor who specializes in animals. I mean, squirrels, I guess other types of animals. Anyway, it was like this, like such a random thing that happened here to us in our house. But anyway, welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you? And I'm sorry for the delay. This is my first time on Substack, and I was having a bit of a technological is technologically challenged. So
Hey, no, they like to see the rawness here. They love to see like, how the soup is made and all the stuff getting behind the scenes here. So we love it. We love it. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. I'm getting your name right, right? Sharon Aboud, is it?
Sharon About.
About. Okay, I didn't. Thank you for the correction. I'm so sorry. And Sharon, about you're a Los Angeles-based immigration attorney, and you're joining Substack. So this is a sort of soft launch for you and getting out there. And for full disclosure, Sharon has agreed to be an advertiser here. She's going to be the first advertiser on Nick Valencia News. We are so excited for her and for her law firm and for the work that she does to, really stand up to the same community that we're reporting on. So I'd love for you to just sort of give an introduction, give us your, pedigree, your short elevator speech, as they say, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Nick. And thank you again for having me and for this opportunity to come speak. And I am very happy to be here. I have over 10 years of practice in immigration law. I knew I wanted to be an immigration attorney since I was a young child and just set out to go to law school and right away did all my practice in immigration law. I've never practiced any other type of law. This is what I love, and now I've had my own practice for almost 10 years. And we're a growing law firm serving the immigrant community. We have been here, through two Trump administrations, and we're here to fight. So
I love it. I love it. And you're working, to stand up for the communities that are really impacted by the current climate. This, what I call an authoritative wing of the Trump administration. Some would say the whole administration is, but we've clearly seen this federal wing or this wing of the federal government conduct these really sort of militarized type style raids. I've talked about this in previous shows where in the 90s, you would see maybe a local sheriff show up to detain the undocumented immigrant. And now you're seeing like this like full scale military-esque tactical gear from head to toe. They look like GI Joe soldiers on our streets. What really scares you? Because you talk about the two Trump administrations, you come with context, you come with perspective. What really stands out to you about what people are going through right now in this second iteration of Trump?
from a local perspective,
Yeah.
I practice immigration law here in Los Angeles, and I have run my firm. Most of our clients are from here. I I've never seen ICE go into areas that I've seen them go this time around. I think that that's what did it for me. That's when I realized it was different this time. Just I think about a month ago, they were at our local car wash. They were never around here, so um, it was it was really shocking. Um, it's shocking to um, it's shocking to see people just so afraid. I talk to clients every day that are telling me they don't even leave the house. Some people have stopped working because they're so afraid, and so this fear that it's causing is just detrimental and discouraging people who could qualify, who could have a benefit, who could have some form of relief here, just completely discouraging them. I understand it as a human being, right? I understand it, but we do need to think ahead and fight the fear, overcome it, because
I
there's still a lot of opportunities.
I know people that, yeah, definitely stopped going to work. There was somebody who occasionally cleans my mom's house, and her husband was detained during one of the raids that I reported at in Cypress Park at a Home Depot. He's still in the system right now. They are holding out hope. Her family, her kids are so scared for her to even go in the front yard. And this is somebody, Sharon, who has lived here basically her entire life, has been a contributing member of society, has had children in this country, is moving in good faith, is trying to add the value that she can, and can't even go into the front yard. This is the climate. You talk about a local car wash being raided. We saw, and I posted video from Unión del Barrio. They're one of the community organizations that's out there in the neighborhoods doing the good work. There was a raid at a car wash in Lakewood over the weekend. You know about the temporary restraining order, the judge that ruled that these agents can't use the color of one's skin. They can't effectively cherry pick outside areas where they suspect undocumented labor to be. Did you see that raid? What do you make of it? And did the feds violate a temporary restraining order here?
There have been so many raids to keep up with,
Yeah.
so I can't say that I know of this particular one, specifically, but, uh, we've seen it many times. We've seen that sort of story many times where they are violating. That's been the challenging part, is that there are no, um you never know which rules they will follow. You don't know, we tell people, "These are your rights, this is what you do," but at the end of the day, they do what they want in the moment, and so that is the most challenging part, is uh how do you prevent that, right? It's like, "Whoops," instead of asking, to do it the right way.
You bring up such an important point because you say, I'm taking notes here. What rules will they follow? And from my friends who are progressives, those who are here without status, they say we're running a race with a moving finish line. My progressive friends, they get on my case for having conversations with Trump voters. There are people that voted for Trump that are watching this right now. I know that. I feel as though it's my obligation as a journalist to meet them where they are. My
Right.
progressive friends, though, they say meeting them where they are to the progressive means that they say, okay, meet me in the middle, and then they take a step back. And then they say, okay, meet me in the middle, and then they take a step back. So what from a legal perspective, what are some of the rules? Not to put you on the spot, but are there some things that really stand out to you that like have changed that were normal or baseline sort of acceptable and now are not under this second Trump administration?
What I think the manner of all these detentions,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what sticks out the most, and,
Just the places that
and,
they're going, the places that they're willing to go, schools, churches, what else?
um, the manner, I mean, to me, what's been really disturbing is seeing people without uniform. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
who is this? Who's who? You don't know. I just um the chaos, the picking up of people who, just again, they say it's harder to prove, but because of the color of their skin, or because they look like they might be from another country, um, all of it is. I can't think, from my perspective, we file a lot of affirmative cases to help people um, be in a better situation in the event that they are caught. Um, And we haven't seen, thankfully, much of a change there, but when it comes to the news that I see, with people being detained, what I find troubling as well is the length of these cases, right? How long are people going to be detained? Um, it's
That that's a huge point. We saw them sort of speaking of rule changes, this is one of them. Bond hearings used to be one of the things that people were eligible for. And now it's as though, they're changing the rules here. And we have a
yeah.
journalist, we have a journalist here in Georgia, Sharon, Mario Guevara, a friend of mine, a Salvadoran national who's been in the country for more than, gosh, how long have I known him? Nearly 19 years, I think. He is about to break a record, and not a good one. He is currently in detention as the fifth longest held journalist in the history of America. And we're in 2025. And he's being held basically, from what his family and his supporters see, are trumped up charges. They detained him at the No Kings protest here in a city in Atlanta, just outside of Metro Atlanta. They held him initially on immigration related charges. They dropped those charges, and then all of a sudden he had some other charges that came basically out of thin air that were leveled on him. And now he's in custody. He spent his Father's Day without his family. He is in a cell, barely big enough to pace around in conditions that who knows what these conditions are like. We know that people that are in custody are sort of like the least of these in our society. People sort of look down and they say, okay, well, these people are guilty before they're proven innocent.
Mhm,
People
mhm.
like that are getting caught up in this climate right now. I want to get into these legal questions that we have for you. You talked about non-citizens, the people that you support. You talked about these rule changes. Somebody comes into you, hypothetically, into your office and is scared. They think that they're next. What's your first course of action? What do you tell them that their protection is?
So I like to say that I'm more of an optimist. I like to There's just so much fear going on, and I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not undermining it. Um, but the reality is that you turn on the news and sometimes you just need to sometimes you need to step away a little bit because everything on social
Yeah,
media
yeah.
is just showing you all the horrible that is happening. But I like to remind people that every day I'm seeing green cards, I'm seeing work permits come into our office for clients. We're still filing for relief. We're still obtaining benefits. Um, it's not all over. There's still opportunity, and you know, a lot of people are afraid to even start a case or start some form of relief or start a pathway
Yeah.
for a green card. They're afraid because what's the point of putting myself in the system? I'm just exposing myself. And that's true. I'm not undermining that fear. It is a real fear. However, you're watching the news. You walk around and you can get caught, and you're caught without any form of status, any form of proof that anything is pending. You're in a much worse situation. So if we're already in a place where everyone is in we're all everyone's subject to being pulled over, asked, and put in that
Yeah.
situation. You might as well confront it. And so many people I talk to, they've lived here for decades.
Right.
They've they didn't for fear of losing an opportunity here in the US. We're talking about people who didn't go back to their country to go to parents' funerals. They didn't go home to say goodbye to a loved one who passed away. They weren't there for those crucial moments. They don't know their nieces and nephews. They haven't seen or touched or hugged their family. This is a decision they make because they love this country so much and they don't want to lose the opportunity to have a life here. So when I see the fear in them and they just want to give up, I say you have a chance. Take it. Take it and give yourself a shot because if we're all at risk, the the risk of not making a decision, the risk of not doing is also a risk and you're responsible for that.
And if you're just joining us, Nick Valencia live here. We're live with our guest, Sharon Abaud. She's a Los Angeles based immigration attorney, and she's talking to us about what she tells people who come into her office looking for help, looking for relief. There's a lot of people that are very scared right now, rightfully so. There is a climate of fear. There is a panic population that seems to be in charge right now who feels as though the very people that you're standing up for, that we're speaking about in our reporting, are threats to them when they're really here, like you've said, for decades and really just are trying to add value. One of the things that you brought up are sort of moving in good faith, trying to do right and go through the process because you're still seeing relief. One of the things that we're seeing, and I'm sure you've seen these videos, people showing up in good faith to their court appearances only to be met by federal agents who take them away, frog march them away. Have you gotten requests for people to show up for them to their court dates? What advice are you giving people? I mean, what do you think about watching the scenes like that you've seen play out?
It's hard to watch because that's not something, typically prior to these changes. Um, Typically you knew what could happen before. You knew that if it was a master hearing, typically that's not where people get picked up. And so it's as an attorney, and for clients, it is a little terrifying because we know we've seen things where they work differently than what we're used to, right? So we're living the change, we're learning it as we speak. Um, what do I advise these clients? I mean, as an attorney, we always have to advise to comply with the law and advise of what the risks are either way. When you don't show up to a hearing, you are definitely going to end up with a removal hearing, and that has consequences as well. So,
Don't
um,
give them a reason to come after you.
don't give them a
Yeah.
reason, right? Like
Yeah.
stay in the challenge. But it is very challenging, and I will say this as well. Another change. I don't know how I didn't mention this earlier when you asked the question, but
Because I put you on the spot. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, there's just so much to talk about." I'm like, "Well, what do I talk about?"
You're doing
Um,
great. Thank you so
thank
much. I mean, for someone like me, look at the people that are watching us right now. They want to see this conversation. They want to see the rawness. We don't need to be. I mean, I almost feel overdressed or something like that. But I was on with the attorney here, so I didn't want to underdress. But this is like having a conversation like at the kitchen table, right? I mean, I really see that way, and so this really is a wonderful conversation. So yeah, speak on that part. Go ahead, pick up where you
So
left off.
what I wanted to say is something that's been really different for us is, in the field of immigration law is a case gets denied, it's getting NTA'd automatically. And I'll tell you something that happened to us recently, which
What's
is really
NTA for those that
disturbing.
don't
Oh, I'm
understand the
sorry.
legalese?
Thank
Yeah.
you. A notice to appear to court. So when you get a notice to appear, that means they already scheduled your hearing date. There's a time and a place where you need to appear. Um, this is the situation is that if you file a case with USCIS and it gets denied, including erroneously denied cases, it's getting automatically, without thought, forwarded to. It's going to be a hearing before the court.
Mm.
So. Um, I'll tell you something that happened to us last week is, earlier this year, we received the immigration, quote unquote, sent us, an interview notice to appear for an interview for a client who has a very clean case, like a very simple, straightforward case. They never sent us the interview notice and they never sent the client the interview notice. So when did we find out? When we get a denial notice for not showing up to the interview. And obviously we appealed that right away and showed them proof that, we said we never received this. Our client never received this. Our client receives automatic notifications. It's not in the system. There's no notice. It gets denied and then it gets, and then the appeal, again, they didn't send us the decision that the appeal was lost. And then we didn't know until our client receives the notice to appear in court. And so this is really just, which we're going to win, we're going to be fine, but they're just making us make these rounds that are completely unnecessary and inefficient, if you ask me.
It's almost as though, Sharon, the chaos is the point, the confusion
The
is the
chaos.
point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really difficult to see because I know that you have clients that are lucky to have you. They're so lucky. And I know they're so grateful. How many hundreds of thousands of people don't have a Sharon in their life? And they're out there and they're not stepping foot out of their front door because they don't know an attorney. They're not plugged in. They don't have a prima, primo, or un familiar que se puede, they don't have any of that. They're just living in fear right now, crossing their fingers, hoping every time that they go out of necessity, that they can go feed their families if they go out at all. One of the things that, I just got back from Delano, California, in the Central Valley, 2.5 hours north of Los Angeles.
Mm.
We spent a lot of time there in the land of Cesar Chavez, and we've been reporting about our insights there. One of the things that was brought up among these student athletes, some of them spend their mornings picking grapes in the early morning, in the afternoon. They come home, they have an hour to turn around, change, eat something. Then they're practicing football in the afternoon. Some of these kids, their parents are those undocumented laborers that are being targeted. One of the kids' name is Samuel Ortega. His father, he says, in his words, was an illegal immigrant. Don't like to use the word illegal. I don't think anyone is illegal, but he says his father was here without papers, right? Now that the president is talking about ending birthright citizenship, this same kid who a few months ago looked at President Trump as some sort of like goofball guy who made jokes that sometimes went too far is now looking at him like a threat to his family. Are you hearing a similar fear of people who are children of undocumented immigrants who, were born here and have potentially put themselves at risk through no wrongdoing of their own simply by who their parents are?
Right. And that's something I'd like to clarify because as the executive, what this act would provide, which I think
Yeah.
is, it is not retroactive, so it wouldn't affect people who are already born here to undocumented parents. It would be, um, believe it's a date in February 2025. So children born after a specific date in February 2025 would be affected by this.
So someone like Samuel Ortega, who's 17 right now, wouldn't have his status taken away all of a sudden overnight under
Correct.
what they're proposing right now. he
under
would
what they're
be okay.
proposing right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Right now, yes. I mean, we don't right? We don't know what it can turn into later, but this is right now, it would not affect them.
And I know people say we're future tripping or we're saying, someone like me is being dramatic or poetic. We've reported on the Trump administration expanding their immigration infrastructure here. They're building brand new facilities to house hundreds, if not thousands of people in Illinois, in Texas, here in Georgia. What does that tell you? What kind of, a window into the future does that give us? Today, it's undocumented immigrants who are the criminals, but really they're going after the cooks. Really, it's not just the criminals that they're going after. Sure, you have violent offenders, but they're going after the cooks. They're going after people who work at the car washes, the taqueros, the street vendors. So today, it's those violent criminals. Maybe tomorrow, it's whatever they're proposing. And maybe someone like Samuel Ortega does have a right to fear. I hate that this is the reality that we live in. Where are we now, Sharon, versus where we were under the first Trump administration? Because it was during that time we saw things like the Muslim ban. We saw TPS being taken away for people like that were born in places like Nigeria, right?
Mhm.
We saw, we see now and hear rumors that TPS is going to be taken away from los venezolanos who loved Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
Prior to this. So,
Yeah,
so
that's
bring
true.
us up to speed here. Tell us about this.
Well, TPS is, it's a temporary protected status for several nationals that are. It's for example, Honduras is included, El Salvador, and yes, it's something that every couple of years is subject to be terminated. And it's usually given to countries where they have some sort of emergency or some sort of national crisis. And it's a form of offering them protection so that they don't have to return to those conditions. And then it's every couple of years it's renewed or not. And there's a lot of talk. I mean, for example, for Venezuelans, it's a little newer. I think it was given to them in the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. But um, for people from Central America, El Salvador, Honduras, it's Guatemala, it is something that they've had for decades. So, they live with this uncertainty for decades. Every couple of years, worried that they might not extend it. They might not extend it. But now I think it's become more real for them than ever. And I urge these people, if they have a way to obtain status, if they have that U.S. citizen child, if they have if they haven't consulted in a while, it's time to do that because it's time that you find some more permanent relief. I'm afraid of honestly of all of them losing this their status.
What a way to live, I mean,
Yeah.
that really is sobering to hammer that point home is that this gets renewed or it doesn't every couple of years. People are on pins and needles already every couple of years. You could do every single thing right and still the system can screw you.
Yeah.
You could be moving in good faith every single day and still. And then they wonder why they get upset at people who say, well, why don't you just do it the right way?
Yeah.
Why
And
don't,
they
why
pay
don't you? Yeah.
taxes, they're contributing, I
And
mean,
some of
these
them
are
don't even get the taxes back. They're
they
paying the
don't.
taxes.
Yes, they don't get the benefits that we do. So it's really heartbreaking, and it's people that are a lot of people. We're talking about 2 to 3 decades now. So there are people that a lot of them are trying to plan for retirement, and so this is this is devastating to a lot of them.
I've spent a lot of time traveling the country during my time as a CNN correspondent. Was there for 19 years, on air for 12. We spent some time in Dorazuela, where all the Venezuelans are. I was in Venezuela and Colombia in Cucuta during the Juan Guaido attempted coup of Maduro in Venezuela. I wrote my entrance essay to get into CNN on Hugo Chavez and his privatization of all of the businesses there. I was in a taxi and an Uber in Chicago with a Venezuelan who was talking about this TPS, talking about the support that his friends for Trump have. It's very interesting because he was a gay man from Venezuela, so he was asking for asylum here, fearing for his life there. He says you can't even bring up Trump now to his friends because they are so pissed off at him for
Mhm.
even flirting with the idea that they would take this away. They've seen some of their peers scooped up in the nonsense that they call nonsense right on the streets of people being targeted for what? You know, when you look at the state of America right now, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Did you have
Oh,
anything to say?
no, I'm just saying that's interesting. I hadn't heard that perspective. I always thought, once someone is supporting Trump that there's a lot that's been forgiven, so I just, um it's interesting to hear that. So,
It
when
was
you're
really interesting for me too, because, these are, the sort of full vocal, full throated supporters that they had before that are now all of a sudden it impacts them. And I think that
Mhm.
that's what we're seeing, Sharon, is
Yeah.
now so many more people. It used to be, oh, them, you could speak in the
Mhm.
abstract about the illegal immigrant
Mhm.
or whoever. And now we're actually seeing things and people are actually getting impacted by it themselves,
Yes. And I
you know?
and I think there's a lot of ignorance to it as well. Like, people who maybe don't have family who are undocumented. Um, I what I get from them a lot is, oh, it's them, like you say, but they don't realize how many people in their circle are affected. It's just that their language is making people afraid to tell them. But I think that this is actually I've seen people like other business owners start to change their mind because they're seeing how many of the people that they worked with, vendors, how many of them are affected that they had, established relationships with, that they knew were good people. So I definitely see that as well.
Yeah, once you put a face, we spoke to a guy named Guadalupe Millan. Now all of a sudden, people, hopefully that watch this, have Guadalupe's face in their head when they eat their grapes. They put that
Mhm.
image and that personalization. That's the stuff that we're trying to do here. We're trying to put a face to this abstract because I have friends who are Trump voters. I have friends who are part of this Maha movement, Make America Healthy Again, Make America. We know all these things. And it's not until I think we do a good faith effort of showing and educating, like, look, this is
Mhm.
this is who it's impacting. When
Yeah.
you're speaking about the people that are invading, it's people like Maria who's there picking grapes for you that end up on your table that you eat, and it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected. It's so crazy to see. I talked about that conversation that I had with the Lyft driver, the Venezuelan, and he talked to me about what they're starting to see now in the Venezuelan community are the parallels between a dictator like Hugo Chavez and
Mhm.
somebody like President Trump
Yeah.
and how
You
he moves.
uh, I saw that since 2016, 2017. I saw the parallel even though they're opposite parties. I mean, it's a full circle, right? It ends up being the same thing. It's not about the part, and I think that a lot of people who are escaping extreme left, they come here and want to attach to the right, which I get. It's a human, the human mind. That's how it works, but it's not looking at the way things are being done, the way, the I definitely see the tie there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the privatization of businesses, is that next? For a man that clearly wants to be seen as the ultimate authority and the ultimate power that is threatening our very state of democracy, that is, pledging and asking people to pledge loyalty to him over country. That's the insane part for somebody that sees this and tries to see this, you know, not in the abstract, but really, talking to people and listening to the conversations that we're having with people. It's like, how can they not see what is happening in front of them? The dismantling of these institutions. This Lyft driver, again from Venezuela, talked about how if you want to go after a population, you go after the education, you dismantle that system. You get people to all of a sudden think that when you give them a bag of rice, they would be so grateful because they don't understand that a bag of rice is just part of the meal, not a whole meal. Is
Mhm.
that the train? Is that the track we're going down with this train? That's what I get scared of. I was having a conversation last night with a friend who says, "What you do is so brave." I said, "What's so brave about it? Like maybe, yeah, getting shot by the police and LAPD, but with less lethals, that's brave. But me talking about immigration, that's not brave." But he says, no, to the contrary, what you're doing and what I'm doing, trying to highlight the injustices to this of this authoritative wing of the administration. That's brave in a time where they don't want us to put the spotlight on the stuff they're doing. In a time when we may not see the benefits in the short term, but what we're doing, I hope here, benefits us in the long term. We've been so grateful to have your time, Sharon Abaud. She is an immigration attorney based in Los Angeles. She's been so grateful to, or so awesome to share her time with us here. What else do you have on your mind here that want to talk to us here? We've got, viewers that are just joining every second I look up and we got another person watching. What do you want to talk about here? What's on your mind?
Well, thank you again for having me. This is really a great opportunity, and it's been a lot of fun. Uh, you know, I the main thing I always try to get across, and on my social media platforms as well, is um, if you have an opportunity, if you haven't consulted yet with an immigration attorney, do it. You might have an opportunity you're sitting on that you're unaware of. Um, if you haven't, and if you know you qualify, but you're afraid because of everything happening, let's look at reality. We're all at risk, whether you file a case or not. And you're better off filing and having something to fight the fight. You've lived here long enough. You've dedicated, time here. You know, leave with an effort. If you have to. And reality is that we're still getting green cards, still getting work permits for people. We're still filing cases. There is still relief. Please don't think that it's all over. It is not. There's still opportunity.
The only thing stronger than fear is hope. You gave us some of it today. Thank you. Do you want to plug your business here? We're gonna see more of you guys. We're gonna be putting her on the newsletter, putting her a banner. You're gonna see posts coming up here a couple times a week at the least. She's one of our sponsors here, our first advertiser. This is real. We're helping out so many people, and thanks to you. So give us a plug for your business. Go for it.
Sure. I'm Sharon Abaud, founder of the law office of Sharon Abaud. We focus our firm exclusively to help undocumented immigrants, and we help them get a better life we get them work permits, green cards, and citizenship. And it all starts with a consult. So if you would like a consult, you could call us at 310-803-3040. You could also follow me on social media. I talk a lot in Spanish. But if there's enough of a demand, I'll start, in English as well. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
This is amazing. Sharon About, thank you so much for taking the time with Nick Valencia live on this beautiful Monday. You brought some hope into our lives. We'll see you again really soon. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Nick. Have a great afternoon.
You too. And we'll stick on here a little bit as Sharon leaves us, gets on with our day, and we'll just recap a little bit. You just end the live there and
Do I end it?
yeah, you can end it.
Okay.
It'll end your
All
part.
right.
It'll keep going on my end.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Oh my gosh. We had such a wonderful conversation. A female owned business, complete badass. You would think that she did interviews all the time. And I think that people, they're more capable of what they really know that they can do. And so Sharon coming on here to like just speak the truth. She usually does that in Spanish and now she's doing it in English. What a star, right? And it's really helping with this mission, is really helping advance what we're doing here and what we're trying to achieve here, which is be a voice for the community. I've said it time and time again that I don't want to get emotional, man. I'm trying to do this without crying. If someone like me, who has a pedigree like me, who looks like me and dresses like this, gets treated like I just crossed the Rio Grande, what are people who have no voice really being treated like? When I left CNN, my full intention was not to make money off of this, but was to use my platform to be a voice of the people and to provide another microphone, another outlet for people to be heard. The cool part about this is that you guys have showed up and you've shown me and shown my wife and my co-partner, my business partner, the three of us here, and a few others that are part of the team, that what we're doing matters. And that not only does journalism matter, but independent journalism matters. And what we're doing here at Nick Valencia Live matters. Thank you guys so much. We'll have much, much more later this week. We have another piece coming out on Wednesday from Delano, showcase more work, more reporting that we've done. And then on Thursday, we're off to Utah to report on that family hunted by the cartels in Mexico, now hunted by the same husband and wife duo ICE agents here in the United States. What they are going to tell us. We're going to focus on the immigration system all throughout the country. We have much, much more to come. Thank you guys again for the latest edition here of Nick Valencia Live. Have a great Monday. Have a great day on purpose.